have to actually thank, it was Paul Malul, and it was actually 20 years ago when I first met Paul Malul. I had just relocated from Jersey City to Plainfield, and I had started running out and checking out some of the fires that were not too far away, and I taught for the Red Cross, and ended up doing a first responder class for the Scotch Plains Fire Department, and my point of contact was then Chief Paul Malul, who actually told me, you should try and come out to our academy and start teaching. And from there, I met Ben Laganga about 15 years after that, and the rest is history, or I guess your punishment. I want to say to the recruits, congratulations. It's 15 of you. I know that each of you has a story, and each of you has a family that's represented here. And I always remind new recruits, I was the chief of training for Jersey City for a short time. You did not get here by yourself. Now, I'm looking for my wife because she's not only my timekeeper, but she is my rock and my support. And I see she's hiding. So by her hiding, that means I don't know when to stop. So as you start to, all right, I just got the message, thank you. I'm always both honored, humbled, and very proud when I'm asked to share not only my experience, but just a few words about the fire service. I love the fire service. I've loved the fire service since I was 4 years old. I love fire service people, even the good and the bad ones. I love it because they've chosen a profession that, not unlike our military, that we eat, we sleep, and unfortunately sometimes die together. There is no other service in public service like ours, and you're going to find that out. Some of you have been volunteers in the past, you've been juniors, so you've been exposed to the quote-unquote firehouse or fire department culture. And of course, I always say we've got our own brand and sense of humor, and if you haven't found that out, then you haven't been in a firehouse kitchen. I don't take it for granted that I was asked to speak with you this evening. I'm humbled, and I'm humbled every time Kristen calls, because I know that she could call someone else. In fact, I've even told her, can you call somebody else? But I'm grateful for the opportunity. I miss my friend who's normally standing here, a longtime fixture of the Fire Academy, our past dean who's just recently retired, Paul Modrak, and wherever you are, I still love you and I miss you. I miss all of the instructors I've had the opportunity to serve with, and we've got our own brand sense of humor when you're not around. I appreciate that the chiefs are here this evening, that they are here representing each one of their agencies and jurisdictions, and that they are here standing beside you and willing to support you in the beginning of your career. When I started this talk in my head, I'm not a rapper by any means, trust me. It's my son Malcolm, he's here. He's heard my failures and feeble attempts. But I thought about the desire, acquire, inspire, and then retire. And as with 28 years in the fire service, I'm looking at retirement. I never thought of those days when I was sitting in your seat some 28 and a half years ago. You never think about the day that you're going to walk out. But as I look around the room at some of my friends from other places that we've fought battles not only in conference rooms, but in fire rooms, it's time for us to get out of the way, as it were. But before we leave, there's some information that we need to share with you. The instructors I know, I've sat and talked with them side by side, gave you the best possible instruction that they could. And you're the new fire department. The new fire department, and I had to go back and get retrained on adult education initially to train firefighters who had not been in the classroom for a long time, learning about adult education parameters and knowing that an instructional hour is really only 40 minutes because it's going to take 10 minutes after a break, 5 minutes before the break, and 5 minutes after the 10-minute break to get them settled back in. But the new firefighter, how many of you have cell phones, smartphones? Put your hand up. It's all right. It's about every one of you. All right. The new firefighter, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, National Bureau of Labor Statistics, says that the average professional firefighter is going to be 26 years old, most likely male, most likely some post-secondary education or some military background. But they're also going to have some affiliation with the fire service, some, either in their community, a family member, or a close and trusted friend. The reality is, most times, you're going to be about 22 years old, and you've thought about it prior to that. very rarely get the person transitioning from another field into the fire service. It happens, it's very rare. But an interesting statistic from the volunteer fire service is that the average person decides they want to be a firefighter when they're about 4 to 7, 8 years old. They start as juniors and they transition, and they can't wait till that day when they're 18 years old that they can take Fire 1 and ride on that apparatus. But again, the desire parameters are usually the same. A close member of the family, some affiliation to the fire service. And so when we look at the who, what, when, where, and how, it's different in a paid department, and it's different in the volunteer service, but it's the same job. Fire doesn't know the difference between a volunteer firefighter and a paid firefighter. And the fire has a commitment issue, and you've got a commitment issue too. The fire wants the building and you want the fire out. It doesn't matter whether you're paid or volunteer. But you have to rely on your training right now because you don't have any experience. We can only tell you about our experience. Fires are down now. The statistics now, fires are down almost 40%. That's due to construction, it's due to education, but it's down. So what do you do in the interim? You're going to have to train. The Bureau of Labor Statistics also says that where we train and where we live, when we're not on the fire scene, firefighters are in fire stations where they eat, sleep, and remain on call during shifts that may last up to 24 hours. So you're going to have to work more on your social skills than your firefighting skills. You're going to spend more time with people and each other, training and preparing to respond, as opposed to the time you actually spend on the fire ground. And that's significant. If you haven't been around that culture, you're in for a treat. I'll put it to you that way. Why are you here is another thing. What is your desire? What do you hope to get out of the fire service? Is it just to drive the cool truck, or to wear the t-shirt that says you're a firefighter, or are you willing to serve your community? Are you willing to sacrifice your life for someone else's? One of my great dreads as a battalion chief standing out in front of a burning building is making a decision on sending people in and where. That calculation in each one of these chiefs' heads goes every fire, every incident on where and when to place our people. Because what are we risking? We're risking your life. And each of us have made a pledge, and I don't even have to get an acknowledgement, that we will not risk your life unless we can save another life. And I can't tell you the number of times in the news, you see it yourself, firefighters losing their lives. More and more we hear about it. And on average, 100 firefighters every year lose their lives, either through training or fighting fires. So what hasn't changed? Our culture hasn't changed. The equipment has changed. Each of you raised your hands about the new phones that you have. And I don't know how many apps you have on your phone. I keep apps on my phone too. I've got apps for hazmat, medical, incident command, and I've got some apps that I play with. But I have never seen a phone app put a fire out. Never seen it. So my advice to you is when you first get there, there's a new app you need to learn. It's your apparatus. Learn everything about it. Learn what it does. Learn its purpose in your organization. Learn every tool that's on it. Because that's what you're going to need at the fire. And I can give you strong advice. My son Malcolm's here. I'm proud of him. He came on the Plainfield Fire Department a year ago. Today is his anniversary. He finished probie status. Although I told him you're a probie until the next probie class shows up. That's just how it works. But I'm telling him the same advice that I'm telling you. Learn that piece of equipment because that's what's going to save your life. Someone's going to turn to you and ask you to go get a specific piece of equipment. And if you don't know what it is, you're useless. If you don't know its application, you're useless. And you have affected everybody else on that fire incident by you not knowing. So learn your apparatus. There was an old story about the Riddle of the Sphinx. Anybody ever heard of the Riddle of the Sphinx? What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at midday, and 3 legs at night or evening? I'm really that old? The Riddle of the Sphinx? Father, help me. Please, and also with you. Okay, that's right, we don't say that anymore. It talked about the answer was actually man. It said that in the morning of our lives, we crawl on 4s, our hands and our knees. In the middle of our lives, we are on our 2 legs. But at the end of our lives, we're usually walking with some assistance or some cane. Well, I'm almost at that point where I'm walking with assistance. I've got to wear glasses now to drive. I've got to use GPS to get some places. But here's the issue for you. Right now, you're in the stages of where you're crawling. And you're going to have to learn how to crawl before you walk, and you're going to have to learn how to walk before you run. And my advice to you is never run on the fire ground. Always move with purpose. Know where you're going and what you're doing. Know where you fit into the entire operation and organization. Now, just starting out, I can remember as a company officer, I'll give you a little bit of advice before I take my seat. I was in the office and a young firefighter came up to mop the floor. And I smelled the most pungent, rancid smell I'd ever smelled in my life. It smelled like a dead carcass. And I'm going, what's that going on? And I looked at the floor, and the dots and streaks and lines on the floor looked like the musical score from the Phantom of the Opera. Just dirty water, dirty water, dirty water. And I said, hey guy, you're gonna have to rinse that mop out because it's, it's dirty. Can you smell that? Oh yeah, it smells bad. I said, well, you're gonna have to rinse the mop. And he proceeded to take that mop and put it into the same bucket of dirty, rancid, pungent water and not rinse it out. Don't laugh. Some of you have been around the firehouse long enough to know that the toughest job in the firehouse right now still is to dump that dirty water bucket. I haven't seen a firehouse yet that I've walked in and not seen that bucket empty. But I asked him one specific question. Do you know how to mop a floor? And his answer shocked me. He said no. No one had ever showed him how to mop a floor. No one had ever asked him how to mop a floor. No one ever taught him how to mop a floor. So as you move into the firehouse, if there's some things that you've never done before, you're going to be asked to do them. It's nothing wrong with saying, I've never done this before. Because the mop is one thing. Operating a hose line at a working fire is something completely different. And if you're not sure about what you're doing, that's really a bad time to ask, but you at least need to let someone know that you don't know what you're doing or you're not comfortable. Because again, that can affect the entire op. Dr. Harry Carter says there are 3 reasons why people don't do things. They're unwilling, unable, and they're unaware. And there's several reasons for that. Education, training is usually how you fix most of it. You've been given the basics. If you can remember how you learned how to drive a car, you had a desire to drive a car, and you maybe took lessons, a family member assisted you, or a friend showed you how the car operated, helped you study to gain your working and learning permit. And then once you had your permit, you practiced for a while before you took your physical and actual practical exam. Well, that's what happened to you in the academy. We were teaching you the basics. We were teaching you how these things work. You didn't really learn how to drive until you got out on the road. And believe me, I'm still learning things when I'm in the road. And I can assure you, any of these officers that have moved from the steering wheel side to the right side front seat, we're still learning things about driving as well. You've been given the basics. There's nothing wrong with getting into the firehouse and asking for assistance. Now, I told my wife I was going to name all my mentors and friends. Each one of you is going to have to acquire, or you may even have already, a mentor or a friend, someone who inspired you, who will either take you under your wing. I've been very fortunate in my career. I'm so fortunate in my career, I can't even start naming one. To name one would be a disservice to the others. And if I began to name one after another, we'd still be here all night. Every person that I've ever come into contact with in the fire service, whether they were in a uniform or not in a uniform, patient, victim, rescue, citizen, complainant, new firefighter, veteran firefighter, senior officer, battalion chief, all the way up to chief of department, politicians, ER staff, everyone has affected my career. Whether it was what to do or whether it was something I knew I'd better not ever try. Everyone's going to affect you in the fire service. There's a lot of information. You've got your phones with you. Billy Goldfeder does this thing called the secret list. If any of you have heard of it, you need to sign up for it, officers in particular. It talks about line of duty deaths and it talks about near misses, which is something we don't talk about in the fire service. If somebody had a near miss, a near death experience, we were grateful to God that they came home safe. We talked about it, maybe even joked about it, but we didn't share that information with our colleagues and friends in other departments. Shame on us. Shame on us for not explaining how somebody almost lost their life. Because if we can do that, we can prevent it from happening again. Dr. Gordon Gradum says, if it's predictable, it's preventable. And that's what we operate out of in the fire service. So as I move to my close, I was going to give you all the rules that you need in the fire service. Leave your cell phone in your locker. or in your car or wherever, unless there's a family emergency, leave it. You've got a lot of information, a lot of learning to do. Read your manuals, read John Norman's book. There's a lot of information out there. Read, 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 and also reach out to this Academy staff. They are par excellence. They are the best at what they do, and I'm proud to serve with them and laugh and joke with them at any time that I can. They're here because they are concerned about you. As I move to my close, and I keep saying that, did I hit my, uh-oh, I just got the signal. I just got the signal. I purposely did not look over there, by the way. Learn every piece of equipment, and the last thing that I will tell you is pace yourself. You've got a long way to go. Bureau of Labor Statistics says the average paid firefighter is 25 years. The average volunteer firefighter is 35 years. God bless you. And the Laganga family, I love you. Ben was a great guy. Anthony, proud to see you finishing this up. See you out there on Facebook. Take care.